We are human beings, and as human beings we have relationships, and that's how we develop, and that's how we grow, and that's what we want most in our lives, is to have positive and high quality relationships. And what happens, of course, is the culture gets in the way.
What we used to call the traditional ideology of masculinity is a recipe for early stress-related diseases, unhappiness, and violence.
The secret of men, the conversations that do not take place among men, have to do with shame. And of course that is the pressure also. Am I man enough? Am I performing enough? Am I successful enough? Am I providing enough?
Why are men in this country, especially middle-aged men, despairing? Why is it that the suicide rate has increased for them? Why is it that there's so much dysfunction and violence? I mean, it has to be, to my mind, the mismatch between these utterly unrealizable ideals and our actual lives.
Who shames boys? History, tradition, religion, parents, teachers, coaches, other girls, other boys. Even if you have never ever told your boy, don't cry, it doesn't take long for them to pick that up.
The simple message that to be a man means you have to be emotionless. I mean, you could be angry possibly, but emotionless in the sense of invulnerable is traumatic, right? And that leads to essentially everything else.
I think it's a mistake to think that men and boys are not naturally empathic. I have a very optimistic view of this. I mean, you surely know this if you've ever watched a 2 or 3 year old boy, deal with a wounded bird. You see empathy, you see compassion. Somewhere we have to beat that out of them. Somehow we have to destroy that.
Boys are really pressured to display a lot of the, quote unquote, masculine characteristics, including physical toughness, kind of this indifference or emotional stoicism, and also a projected self-sufficiency. So really being taught not to show that they need or desire relationships. That really puts them in a difficult position of not being able to share themselves with other people, not being able to express a full range of their thoughts and feelings and desires, and ultimately really feeling a sense of isolation, that feeling of lack of social connectedness, lack of other people's acceptance and support has been linked to depression and suicide and or violence against other people. I think that those feelings of isolation can really be detrimental both for the boys as individuals and to the people around them.
We live in a culture that tells our sons to hide their emotions. We live in a culture that tells our daughters only certain kinds of emotions should be expressed. It is through the expression of emotions that we connect in relationship to others. In fact, emotions are born in those relational spaces between people. So if we tell our children, don't express emotions, what we're basically doing is limiting their capacity to form relationships.
That sort of message that the boys tell us, as well as girls tell us, also is confirmed in the neuroscience and all sorts of evolutionary anthropology, that we are born naturally relational human beings. That's a natural state of how we are as humans. Charles Darwin even said the reason why we thrived as a species is because of our social nature. Our problems are we live in a culture that defines not only manhood but also maturity in ways that actually disconnect us from our relationships. And so it's actually a culture clashing with nature.
It's about making sure men act like men. So any expression of compassion, emotion, you're a pussy, you're a wuss, you're a wimp, you're a faggot. And I think men are terrified of that. It's still the #1 put down in every middle school, high school, and college campus in the country is, that's so gay. And it has nothing to do with homosexuality anymore. It's a way that we do gender policing. I am policing your masculinity.
I mean, what's amazing to me is the slur girly and gay is actually what it references, a kind of softness, vulnerability, emotionality, relational, is at the core of our humanity. And we mock it as being lame.